Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Carvel Community Meeting. Today's date is March 27th, 2024. If you're watching this recording from home, we meet every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So we encourage you to come join us live. It's a good opportunity for you to listen in on what the maintainers are working on, provide feedback, bring up any discussion topics you may have. If you have questions or if you just want to sit and listen, we welcome anyone and everyone. We would love to have you join us. For those that are in the meeting today, just a reminder, if you do have something you want to discuss or you have any questions, put that in the discussion topic section down below, and we will get to it once we get through all the other stuff. If you are unable to ever attend these meetings, but still want to get in touch with us, there are several ways you can do that. You can reach out in the Carvel channel within the Kubernetes Slack workspace. You can email us. You can find us in GitHub within any of our project repos, or you can find us in X at Carvel_dev. And at any point that you are interacting with us or any other members of the community, we ask that you please read and abide by our code of conduct right here. It's linked out throughout all of our repos. If you are using the Carvel tools, we want to know more information about how you're using those tools. So we created this pinned issue. And it just asks for some details on your organization and company, link to the website, your country, contact info, which is, all this is optional. So, whatever you're comfortable sharing is totally okay. The main thing we're after is, what is your scenario for using Carvel tools? So it helps us to understand better how other folks are using these tools and help with the development process. And it also helps the community see how others are using the tools so they too can understand how they might be able to use them. So we would love to know information about how everyone's using it. It's a good way for us to sort of get these details in a more, I guess, organized fashion, since otherwise it's quite hard for us to know as an open source project who is using our tools. So we would really appreciate you filling this out. For those that are on the call, just please add your name to the attendees list so that we can keep track of who all is attending these meetings and the organization that you are representing. That is optional if you're uncomfortable with that, but we just like to keep track who all's attending. And I swear, if you're watching this from home, it's not just me at this meeting. Moving on to announcements. So I put this in the Slack channel yesterday, Monday. And, just based on the trajectory that we have been on the last, I don't know, 6 months, I think Carvel is ready for going for incubating, especially after our presence in KubeCon in Paris. It really felt like there was a huge uptick in, people that were knowledgeable at Carvel, were interested in Carvel, were using Carvel, just a lot of support there. And, it's a long process, but I think we're ready for it. So it's gonna take a bit, but I just wanted to make sure the community knew this is what we're going for. I don't think Carvel's just a sandbox project anymore. We probably were more than a sandbox. I mean, not probably. We were more than a sandbox project when we went for it, but I think we're definitely ready for incubating. So, moving on to content. So since we last met, we have the two talks we did in Paris for KubeCon EU, that's now on YouTube. So be sure to check those out. We have the Project Lightning talk, which is about a 9-minute long talk. And then we have the CFP accepted session, which was on the last day of KubeCon. So while not totally well attended because everyone's leaving the event at that time, we did have a few people in the audience, and you can now go and watch the recording itself. So it's a more of a beginner level talk, kind of goes over all the tools. Moving on to releases. So we have kbuild 0.42.0. Joao.
Well, look at that. So this was like a very small release, but very important one because people are using kbuild as a library. Even though we don't have like a full flushed out API, they started using it, and we did realize that there was no way for you to know what version of kbuild when you're using when you're consuming kbuild as a library, which in some of other tools this doesn't matter, but specifically on kbuild it does, because there's like an attribute on the configuration that says that you want like a minimum version of the tool to be used in order to run a particular configuration, right? And because there's no configuration, there was no like version, then it would fail for folks. So this change was added. I think that eventually like this change should be added to all our tools. Yeah, I didn't have time to go through it, but I do think that would be good if we could add this change to all the other tools, just to make sure if they are consumed as a library, they project the correct version out. So that's basically it. And yeah, I don't know if anyone has any question.
You said you would like to have it implemented in other tools. Do you think that should that be documented somewhere?
Yes, it should. Like, I think you should like open issues for all the tools to change the way they are setting version. Even though like some of the tools, it's more like a nice to have, like for example, like very specific example, like image package. Image package has an API, is consumed as a library, but it never relies on the version itself. But it would be good if you ask the version of image package when you are even using it as a library to know what the version of the library is, right? So I think that would be good to have.
Cool. Okay. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Moving on down to status updates. So I was hoping Rena was going to be on the call, but she is unable to attend because I know that she's taken this on. She said she's going to be working on the proposal and have it ready by end of week. But we at Broadcom we'll be closed on Friday for a US holiday. So I'm not sure if anyone can review it, but hopefully I can see it before then. Not sure, but it's due April 2nd. So stay tuned for that. If you're watching from home and you're a technical writer and you're interested in this, be on the lookout. Feel free to reach out to us if you're interested. All right, moving on to project roadmap stuff. I just put these notes in here from last time. Release package repository as tar. Was Ashish's work reviewed? Was the proposal merged?
No, it was not. Like unfortunately I had -10 time the last like 2 months. Let's see if things get a little better, maybe in a couple of weeks, and I can sit down a little bit and look through this. I'm also more than happy to, like, if somebody wants to go and review the work, this is like a very much package heavy. So if it's something that you'd like to get a little bit more acquainted, feel totally free to go and review. And yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. What about the dependency management item and the roadmap?
Roadblock.
Yeah.
Praveen, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, no updates from my side. I was a bit occupied last week, but I'll try to um, make changes based on the comments by end of this week. And ask for
Cool. Thanks, Praveen. And thanks for representing Carvel while in Paris. Appreciate all the work you did there. Moving on to backlog stuff. Yeah, focused on downstream items. Working on updating the file headers. Praveen, I think you were working on that. I know I got a notice in GitHub. GitHub post.
I don't think it was Praveen, but it was somebody from Praveen's family. We are like, for that one, if I link the main issue there, we are already, oh my God, like, can you open it? We are missing three, I believe, three tools at this point. We have those four already have the correct headers. So we are in a good track. I do believe that there isn't much apart like from that. I'm not sure if we're gonna change. Maybe we should change some of other repos. Now that I'm thinking about if there's like any kind of headers in other repos, but those are like the most important ones. And so like to answer that question, I didn't saw that question there. Basically, we're just updating the header files where we have like where we have the copyrights to pointed to Carvel authors instead of VMware. That was the legacy there that we never ended up going around to change it. So the expectation is that we would change like all the files that contain the header that says that it is copyrighted to VMware, and because this is a CNCF project, so it should be copyrighted to CNCF, to us, the authors. So that's it. You're cool.
Does that answer your question, Jordan? Does that clarify things?
Yeah, I was really just concerned about the date there because there's a wide variety of how that's handled in different projects, and some would just update the stakeholders and not the date. Some do both. It wasn't really clear, but I see that merge PRs are being pretty consistent about updating both. That's really the clarification we needed. Thanks.
Yeah, we kind of decided to go to change the year as well, just to make it like consistent all around. And in some sense, like this kind of changed ownership. It was like 2023, but we're just pointing at 2024. So
Yeah, I think I back when we were first having this discussion in September of last year, I had reached out to I think maintainers group on the CNCF Slack workspace and just asked what others were doing. We're trying to gather, figure out if there was any clear guidance there. But yeah, it was like, Jordan, you're right. It's just like everybody is doing their own thing. So I think we kind of went with something that was more of like maybe a majority, or I remember we were trying to figure out what was the most appropriate thing based on the answers we got there. So but yeah, it is all over the place. All right, cool.
That being said, if you want to do that change on the tools that are missing, just feel free to add a PR. And I say you is whoever is interested in doing that PR. Like, we're more than happy to have that changed.
Is this the thing you added, Joel? Merge CRD updated check proposal?
Oh, the proposals. Yeah, I had. Oh, I forgot. There's some package there. Okay. Yes. So we just merged the pre-flight. This, I think it was this week. So or 5 days ago. Okay. So that's done. By consensus, it just got merged. So thanks everyone who worked on this and that reviewed it and that put some work in. Thank you so much for moving our tools forward with awesome proposals. So good job.
Sweet. Awesome. Cool. Moving on to discussion topics. Bryce, you're up.
Yeah. So carrying on from Jaws' last topic, this is an initial implementation of the CRD upgrade safety pre-flight check in CAP, and it contains the CRD upgrade safety pre-flight check implementation in general. So with this PR, you'll now be able to specify the check called CRD upgrade safety. And as of right now, for this initial implementation, it'll include checking for scope change. So if you transition from cluster to namespace scoped for your CRD or vice versa, it'll say, hey, that's a breaking change, and that can likely break clients and things like that and won't let it through. And then removal of an existing stored version. So this PR should be like the base implementation. Once that gets in, we can continue iterating and adding checks on top of that for some of the other checks that were discussed in that proposal. So, yep, just wanted to share it and make sure it gets to a wider audience and get some eyes on it. So.
Great. Thanks, Bryce. Any questions or comments from the team on this?
I haven't completely gone through it, but so far it looks good. I'll probably be able to go through it completely tomorrow.
Yeah, and one thing just to note, in case anyone is intimidated by the number of changes there, a lot of it is vendor directory changes. So if you had the vendor directory, there should be, I think, like a total of 5 or 6 files changed.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Praveen. What?
I was sorry, just an add-on to what Bryce is doing. I'm Todd. I work with Bryce. There is a similar PR that I posted up in the Slack channel for the configuration side of it. So that's also ready to be reviewed.
It's ready to be merged. I'll merge it after this meeting. I just read through your change, but I'll merge it. Looks good to me.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
I was muted. Thanks, Todd, and it's nice to meet you.
Same.
Put that in here real quick. All right. right, moving on to Kevin's, or let me first, is there any other comments or questions on that before we move on? Okay, so moving on to Kevin's comment, the Carvel governance model.
Hey folks, how's it going? My name is Kevin Reza. I'm one of the core contributors over in the Operator Framework project. I'm sure you probably have seen a bunch of folks, mostly from Red Hat, filtering in and out, kind of starting to take a look at Carvel and some of the things it's doing, especially in the context of installing bits that you guys have worked on. Well, first of all, like I said, I want to introduce myself. I think one of the things we've been thinking about a bunch is how there's a lot of overlap in terms of what some of the components that you guys have built and some of the stuff we've been trying to build do a lot of similar things. And so, obviously we've been getting more involved, trying to figure out what it would take for us to start using some of those components either as APIs we tell folks to install as dependencies or potentially vendoring certain things. I think that what I'm really interested in talking about today is, so given the fact that I think we're thinking about that, and at least for, I work at Red Hat, for Red Hat's perspective, thinking about how we could potentially subsume some of those and either deploy them or at least vendor some of those things in our Kubernetes distribution. What I am hopefully looking for is some information in terms of your community's governance model. Part of the reason being stuff like, for our upstream users, for our downstream users, having the ability for us to say, oh, hey, there's a security vulnerability and this is what we need to do to go fix it, and not be, essentially blocked because we can't get reviews or things like that. I took a look at some of what's written here at a high level in terms of governance. What I'm really looking for is like, what does the contribution ladder look like? Both in terms of two things. One is, I think we have some folks who are interested in trying to become maintainers on some of these projects. And what does that process look like? And then the second question I have maybe more generally is like, is there a high level steering committee concept, and how does membership in that look like?
Were you, yeah, have you taken a look at this part, the community membership? It's something that we created, I guess, 2 years ago. And we have, I think, one person who is in process of actually like going through this. That would be Thomas. And we are working on him to become a maintainer. He's kind of been our guinea pig with this. Thomas, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm curious about the form part, the template, the missing piece that we didn't have in there. If you've gotten any further with creating that.
Yeah, it's not finalized yet. We briefly talked about it at KubeCon. I guess it would be nice then to document all of that and maybe update the page once we have figured out the exact form of that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we pulled this from the Kubernetes membership process, and the one thing that we failed to bring in is the form, the template that folks need to actually fill out to become a member or a maintainer. So there's that. And then you mentioned the steering committee slash like TOC, the idea of like what we're trying to figure out there. And I was going to work on a proposal for that this week. So, and to figure out what that looks like. And I definitely want as much community input as possible on, what's the best plan there, like how we should go about that? Because Carvel is kind of unique in that it has all these different tools that make up the whole project. Hey Bryce, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so I just had a question about what's considered like an active contributor in your community?
Yeah, we had put in.
It's on the member side, I think.
So how inactivity is measured. So is defined as members or is it within 12 months after a certain period away from the project with no activity, those members would need to refamiliarize themselves with the current state before being able to contribute. I guess it's pretty vague.
Yeah, so
I guess within 12 months.
inspiration for that question is, say I'm interested in becoming a member in the Carvel community. What constitutes that I've been enough of an active contributor to get to that level?
Can you move all the way up to member? So basically we tried to, like, in some sense, when we tried to put this in, it was a little bit vague to try not to put like a lot of dates and stuff like that to give some flexibility, but also that brings the other part where it becomes a little bit ambiguous what it means. But this is roughly the idea, right? Like in order for it to become a member, what are like the expectations? You should be a person that is active, that replies in Slack, that creates issues, that creates PRs, that does something that is moving the project forward. That's kind of the expectation. And when I'm saying project, like Carvel in itself, I think in some sense is a little bit like O's project, because it has like multiple sub projects that some of them interact with each other and some of them don't, right? But this idea of a ladder, when we envisioned this, we decided this to be like per tool. So if you wanted to, for example, let's imagine that you really like K-build and it's a tool that you'd like to improve in, something that you get involved with, we will start like being more active, creating issues, trying to fix PRs and replying to answers in Slack and so on. And so we don't have like, you need to do 3 PRs to make this work, right? Like we don't have like a number, but it's more kind of a gut feeling when you look for the person. And the objective here is that when you want to become a member, you just have like this template that I think we never did, because I used it. I created a template and I used it for myself, and then we used it like another time, I think, to move people in between roles, let's say. But I think we never ended up like putting it in a more form. But like the idea is that somebody will sponsor you, that would have like some reasons for you, like what does it look like for this person to be to match like these requirements. So it's a little bit vague. It's going to be like a little bit of a gut feeling in here, but yeah, I don't know like if this is very if it helps or if it just creates more confusion.
Yep, no, that's totally fine. And I know that the Kubernetes ones are a little bit more vague as well. I was just wondering if there was like a general guide that whoever's approving and providing that membership kind of follows for that. But I think that this sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, at least my experience as part of the TOC and what we do for the operator framework, it's actually a relatively similar process. I think we have a little bit more in terms of like some hard requirements, but at a high level, hey, make sure that you're a member in good standing is a reasonable requirement. And I do think that there has to be some amount of, well, people know each other, and we understand that whether or not they're, being active contributors and solving problems, as opposed to, like we get folks at our community where they come in and they say, hey, we want this feature, and force a feature through and then disappear, which is not really what I would define as sort of a maintainer role or even a member role. Like that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. So this makes a lot of sense to me. I guess on the TOC question, if you guys are thinking about that, it might be helpful for me to send a link to kind of what operator frameworks governance looks like, because we have an election cycle and we do all that kind of stuff. If that's I mean, I don't know, like, is that something that you guys are interested in or looking to figure out?
I shared that in a previous community meeting where the discussion was brought up.
Gotcha.
There was a thread that I started like couple of like maybe a month back that we have a couple of links there. I don't know if we ended up just moving them somewhere. And is this the one? I think. So this is like the thread. Okay, you got the thread. Okay. So
Yeah.
this is the thread. We did like some examples, and yes, you all just shared your governance and like steering committee information there. So I think like that the main thing that we wanted to do, like we need to sit down and maybe create some sort of like initial draft so that we can start looking at it and see if it makes sense. And I do believe that like we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We just need to, like, when we did our membership ladder, it was somewhat based on Argo, if I'm not mistaken, and the governance, we picked it up from Argo and from Kubernetes. So like we're not here trying to reinvent the wheel, right? So like, just trying to make sure that do something that makes sense. But we'd be more than happy to have y'all's input when we have something started. We have a draft of it.
That's great. That's awesome. I guess maybe my last question, and I don't know if this is when you will be able to answer, but do you have a timeline for when you think something like that is going to be available?
Not to put Nancy on the spot here, but she said she was going to start looking into it. And since we are aiming to go to like start looking into incubation, I think that's something that is kind of like, I don't think it's a must for incubation, but I think it's something that we should hold ourselves as a must for us to get there.
Yeah.
So soonish.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think incubation is probably a really good way to contextualize it. Like, at least for us, when the operator framework was accepted and moved into the incubation phase, having contributors from different organizations was definitely something that they looked at and we had conversations about. A lot of our ability to do that was based on our, having folks from especially the Cube Builder and Controller Runtime communities, and having that be multi-organizational. So if there's anything I can help out with there, please let me know.
Yeah, that would be great. Varsha, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just had a question regarding the incubation project, but before that, I just wanted to say that I was at KubeCon last week, and it was amazing meeting the Carvel maintainers, Praveen, Thomas, and Somek. So big shout out to them. Regarding the incubation, Nancy, I saw your issue on it. I just wanted to check in if there's been any progress, and if there was a chance to talk to CNCF, and what do you think the timeline would be considering the Carvel project?
Yeah, I had put that in there on Monday. I haven't like fully haven't dove into it too much, but I was kind of like waiting for some of the maintainers to review it and just kind of look at it. I know that CNCF just changed some of the requirements to go from sandbox to incubation to graduation. So I need to familiarize myself with all the new requirements before I have an update there, and like where we stand and what needs to be done. But yeah, I haven't reached out to anyone at CNCF directly, except for I think I just chatted with George Castro casually, and was just like, yeah, I think, you know, Carvel's going to go for incubating, but yeah, haven't gotten too much farther there.
No worries. Thanks for the update.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I'd assume that it would be safe to say that we want to get to incubation, maybe latest like summer. I'm just putting like trying to set expectations. We internally in Broadcom have seen like an uptick of work where like the team has been pretty stumped with a bunch of internal work. So things have been moving a little bit slower than we'd like. But just to set some expectations to folks, like this is not something that's going to happen next month. Right? Like that we'll have like everything together. So
yeah, I was gonna say something similar in that the timeline in general that's kind of given by the TOC with this new process is like sometimes even upwards of 15 months. So it's like they said, like anywhere from 5 to 15 months. So it could be, you know, if the application that we put in is perfect, I think in the perfect scenario is 5 months from the time we submit it. But or you know, 15 months if they come back and say we need to do X, Y, and Z and keep working on some stuff. So
I was not even saying like that we'd be in incubation in like summer. I was just saying like that our process for application, because I was looking at this, we need to do like presentations and we need to get through like a bunch of information as well, and eventually it would be good for us to finalize like TOC steering committee work beforehand, and all these things are going to take a little bit of time. Just try to set expectations that I hope that we can, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to apply before summer. But I think that might be like a good aim for us to try to see if we can around like at least June, July to have this out. Does that sound like a good time?
yeah, I think that works. And whenever I dive into it, I can potentially try to divvy up some stuff. So, you know, it's, you know, some of the tasks are delegated across the team. And Varsha, I appreciate the question because it shows your interest, and you know, it's just amazing to see, you know, to see that, you know, concern and you know, you are genuinely interested in like what the next steps are for Carvel and going to incubation. So the whole Red Hat team's really amazing.
A more technical question is the issue that you created with the new templates and requirements from CNCF that you just talked about? It is? Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah, I'm on the TOC newsletter thing, email, whatever it is. So I saw the emails exchanged between the TOC folks, and then they linked it out to the new requirements. So and then I went there to put that in there. So all of this can be summed up as we're working on it. We will get there. And it could be soon, could be a few months from now, but I will try my best to work on this. And in case anyone doesn't know, I'm also the community manager for Build Packs, and we're going for graduation. So there's a lot going on. All right. Anything else on this? I feel like we were so vague and like kind of all over the place. I'm hoping that people will have a better understanding. But if you have any more questions or need some more clarity, feel free to say something. Cool. All right. Okay, I did have this one little question left. As we are getting more and more, I think, robust with people engaging with the project and wanting to work on the project, and there's a lot of discussions and a lot of work being done. I feel like we should move to a weekly cadence. I know that we've bounced around from bi-weekly to weekly since 2021, but it really feels like this is different. So I'm wondering how folks are feeling about the going to weekly cadence.
I will say I am not a fan of more meetings. That is just a general thing, not necessarily the specific.
Yeah, I hear ya. I'm also not a fan of more meetings. I know that it was brought up briefly in the last community meeting and the meeting before that. But I just wanted to gauge how folks are feeling.
I think that's fine as long as the community and everybody here in this call feels like there's typically sufficient enough stuff to discuss within a week. I've been a part of a community in the past that has gone from biweekly to weekly and then back to biweekly when we realized that there was not enough things that we were discussing consistently every week. Even though we were coming up to time on the biweekly meeting, it would often be like at that weekly cadence. Sometimes there would sometimes be some stuff, but there was also weeks where there was like little to nothing, and we spent about 5 minutes in the meeting. So as long as people feel there's enough to discuss, that every week is sufficient enough to have a meeting, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think actually my my idea, or like me thinking this, was more so my concern for y'all's team. If you felt like you were getting things were moving forward at the pace that you would like, that you were getting enough feedback, enough discussion in a timely manner. If you felt like the community meetings were the place where things were pushed forward quicker, or if haven't had any effect on that at all. Like if y'all are fine, if you don't see any concern there with just keeping bi-weekly, and then you're getting what you need in async fashion, then I think staying bi-weekly is fine.
Yeah, I think as long as folks are still active in Slack, at least from my perspective, I've gotten everything I've needed in terms of like sharing PRs and getting some eyes on it. I think just from habit, I tend to also share them in community meetings from other communities that I've been in, because I know that the Slack channels can typically that stuff can get kind of lost in the flood of things. So as far as I'm aware, it's been fine on my end. Also considering, I think time zone differences and that cycle. I think for all the stuff that I've contributed and done, I think it's been reasonable timeframes.
Okay, sounds good. And speaking of like chatter in the Slack channels, one of the things we had discussed about a year or two ago was having a separate Slack channel for like, I don't know, Carvel devs, something like that, where it's mainly about work discussion, and then the main Carvel channel is more like questions from the community that need help with stuff.
I think it's reasonable to have it all in one, unless, I mean, I'm relatively newer to the community, so I don't think that I have a ton of exposure to how often you guys get questions versus, hey, I've contributed this thing in that channel, but
I want to see what your dog looks like.
well, I've got two.
Okay, I think bottom line, don't if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think everything seems to be copacetic now. So
Yeah, I mean,
keep the Slack channel. I think since we're having like so much more engagement and work done, it's like there's like a couple of topics that I wanted to revisit to make sure the folks feel supported and that everything is working well enough, and there's, if there's anything that we should be changing to make it better, but it seems like everything's fine.
yeah, I mean, I also think that from my perspective, I'm not someone who's afraid to like start to ping every day if something I feel has been sitting way too long. So if that is also not a place that, like on Slack, you guys don't want that, I think then maybe shifting, like if that gets to that point where we feel like we're not getting enough eyes on stuff we're trying to contribute, then I think maybe a weekly thing is good. But I think until that point, like you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Cool. Yeah. I also will ping. Sometimes I will be annoying and ping the team if they haven't responded to stuff in Slack yet. So, all right, cool. I think we're good there. Nothing needs to be changed. And then big thing on my end is to work on the steering committee proposals and the incubating application form and see what we need to do clearly moving forward. So, all right, before we part ways, we have 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that people want to discuss? Nope. Okay, well, thanks everyone. So happy to have y'all at the meeting. Great discussion topics. Everything just, seems to be moving forward with Carvel, and it's just really great to see, and I'm looking forward to what's to come for the rest of the year. And if you're watching this recording from home and you want to come join us live, just a reminder, we meet every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m. Pacific time until we decide to go weekly. But right now we are still bi-weekly. Thank you again, everyone, and we will see you soon.